All right, hello again, and we're back here with another week, another topic we're going to explore, and that's with body worn cameras. Now, this is something that attracted a lot of attention back in the olden days, which were really not that long ago. But I remember being in grad school, and this was something I was like, oh, magic, and that is kind of what it was seen as a little bit, right? Is magic in the sense of like what this could do for policing. So its impact on policing behavior, and also outside of this, right? What it's really more about is police citizen interactions. So let's take a moment to kind of set some background for police behavior, right? So if you are working as an officer, if you or if you've ever interned or you've ever gone on a ride along, or you've had anything related to it, right? There's stuff that's portrayed in media and like recruitment television, like YouTube ads and television ads and stuff like that, and then there's like more reality, right? So when we think about police behavior, right, we know, of course, as something we've already discussed in this course, right, that police are allowed to use force to, accomplish whatever their goal is. They can do searches and seizures. They also play a role with these searches and seizures, that they have their ability to do to use their own personal discretion, right? Because they've been trained on appropriate policy and procedure to conduct duties to their job. They have to make decisions individually that are grounded in departmental policy or state law or federal law, right? So they have to make all these decisions, and so police have some discretion about who they want to stop, who they don't want to stop. If they do stop someone, what actions to take during there, how things should proceed, how things are documented, how much of an investigation period you have, right? There's a lot of decision points in policing, right? The other part to consider too is that all these occur, and while yes there is supervision in the sense that someone could be have like a corporal who's maybe assigned to them, or maybe a sergeant, right? A lot of behavior historically is hidden, right? What do I mean by that, right? Unless someone is pulled to out for a call and is dispatched to somewhere, right? And unless someone is watching officers, like using GPS tracking, right? Police can kind of do what they want, like they're sort of driving around everywhere. There's not a lot of oversight. And historically, with the exception of maybe like a traffic stop with like a dash cam, right? These things were sort of hidden, right? And so what this creates is, a low visibility kind of job, which is kind of like the dream for a lot of people, where you don't really have a boss that's nagging you all the time, other than, you got to get your TPS reports, and you have to, do your job effectively and limit complaints and stuff like that, right? But it's also, creates a lot of freedom, right? In the sense of you're able to do your job without having a lot of restrictions or, paperwork that goes along with that, right? So with this freedom and stuff, it's really great what's going on here. But, compounded with this is that because police are a government agency, right, there is a ton of paperwork that is involved with staying transparent and accountable, right? Because when you are are ultimately the gateway to the criminal justice system, and in order to authorize someone taking you in the CJ system, or restricting someone's freedom or liberty, or searching their person, or using force, right, you have to be in a position to document that information, because you're really playing with someone's lives a lot, right? Or if there's a decision made to use force, right, you can't just like use a gun and shoot him. There's usually a justification that needs to be in place. You need some paperwork to find out what was happening in the context of a decision, right? Now, if we think about, so I'll just know that this is a lot of context that's, interested and maintained ahead of time. So with this, right, if we have this kind of background information in place, what do we do with this, right? Or why is there a problem, right? Well, so the first thing that ends up happening, right? First kind of problem or known, I guess maybe we can do like another one of these concept maps, right? So if we think about, problems with police citizen encounters, right? There are many, some are positive, some are not, but we're just going to focus on the problems for now. So when we think about the sort of problems and how they're like mixed and interrelated with this, right? The first one, right, is this low visibility problem, right? So historically, when we look at police encounters, right, and they're not foreseen, there are instances where we want to know exactly what was said by an officer or by a citizen. What were the state of interactions like between the police and the citizen beforehand? What escalated to what? Was there a weapon seen? Was there something taken? And so on, right? And the point being is that with this visibility, right, with something in place or not having seen, a lot of these decisions become murky. And so when things are murky, right, it becomes easily for things to be hidden. And when they're hidden, right, there is the potential for an abuse of power, right? Because if the police officer is the gateway of information, right, it makes it to an official record that's being used in a court of law. They're the ones that have been skilled and trained, on this, and then, on a defense stand, a jury tends to believe officers more than the person receiving trial or under trial. There is a huge power disadvantage because of this, right? And so this power disadvantage, where there's only one person who controls the narrative, with it, right? So police control access to information, they control what ultimately gets filed and reported on record. It does get filtered through a corporal or through a sergeant who's going over reports and stuff like that, right? But this power disadvantage, can play an important role. The other part, too, along with this power disadvantage, right, is that when you are the gatekeeper to this information, a lot of it's, hidden or abusive. You have, along with this power, right, there's more of this, public trust in officers in someone under trial, right? I think most people, even though it's not supposed to be like this, have a tendency to assume that someone who is under trial, they at least had probable cause to get arrested and to have, a suit filed against them, right? So there's already some stuff that's not looking so great, and while you do have to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and I think people go in thinking, all right, the person under trial is, probably did this, right? And so when you have a jury or people that are, more inclined to believe the police, right, it takes, that's a huge barrier to overcome, as a defendant, right? Especially, if you think something didn't go right, if it has the potential or ability to screw someone, really, right? The other part, too, is that, that there are also issues that, let's say that someone had an encounter with an officer, maybe nothing happened with criminal, but the officer was rude, or you felt like, they didn't misappropriate their job, right? There was a citizen complaint, or there are citizen complaint platforms, but, they're effectively zero worth, right? They go to zero in the sense that without some kind of evidence, without some kind of documented complaint, if you're just coming in complaining, right, people just, maybe don't subscribe to it, or they're not willing to believe what you said. And as a result, it becomes hard to start a record on someone because if claims are unfounded or if it's just someone airing out a complaint, then what do you do with that information, right? We tend to live in a society that requires facts and documentations to support points and to establish punishment. And so, we can see like why this is, an issue, right? And of course, on with this, right, is that there is a historically and probably continually poor relationship with communities of color as well, who have often, alleged that police, act and behave a certain way when they aren't being seen, that they are the victim of racial profiling or illegal searches and seizures, abuse of force, where things are framed and made up in order to harm someone to cover up the policeman's tracks. And so there's a huge lack of trust, in police officers because of that, right? So, there's a lot of these problems and encounters with police citizens that, without due to the low visibility nature of the job and, sometimes poor supervision. This is not to say all departments can't do this, because again, there are over 18,000 police agencies in America. There's a lot of variation because of that. There is a lot of opportunity for misbehavior to, occur. And to the extent that misbehavior is a problem, which I think most people would agree, this leads to issues where there's a sacrifice in police legitimacy. There's a less willingness to believe the police are legitimate. It could possibly lead to an escalation of violent encounters between citizens and police. And so there is, an increasing, desire, demand for things to change, right? So with that, we'll kind of, table this for now, and we'll pick up